May 22, 1943. A secluded military research facility nestled in the mountains outside Tokyo. Engineer Captain Hiroshi Nakamura stood with his arms crossed, watching as the captured American vehicle was unloaded from the transport truck. The olive-drab machine looked almost comically small compared to the larger military vehicles parked nearby. Captain Nakamura and his team were convinced this primitive-looking automobile would reveal fundamental weaknesses in American manufacturing, weaknesses that could be exploited on the battlefield. "This will confirm our technological superiority," Nakamura remarked to his colleagues. "Their mass production methods surely sacrifice quality for quantity." The rising sun cast long shadows across the testing grounds as the small group of elite engineers prepared to dismantle what they believed was nothing more than a crude American publicity success, the Willys MB, more commonly known as the Jeep. Little did they realize that this unassuming vehicle would completely transform their understanding of industrial warfare and modern manufacturing. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. This is the untold story of how a humble American vehicle forced Japanese military engineers to confront a devastating reality: that they were not merely facing a different industrial philosophy, but a fundamentally overwhelming production capacity that would ultimately determine the outcome of the Pacific War. The journey of the particular Willys Jeep that now sat in the Japanese testing facility had begun 9 months earlier and 7,000 miles away. The assembly line at the massive Willys Overland Motors factory in Toledo, Ohio hummed with activity as thousands of workers, many of them women who had replaced men now serving overseas, moved with practiced efficiency. The factory operated around the clock, producing one completed Jeep every 90 seconds. Production supervisor Eleanor Winters, a 34-year-old former schoolteacher, supervised the final quality control inspection station. "Unit number 273855 looks clean," Eleanor called out to her team as the Jeep rolled off the line. "Typical build time 62 minutes from frame to completion. Mark it for Pacific Theater deployment." She made a notation on her clipboard. Since joining the factory in 1941, Eleanor had personally overseen the completion of over 16,000 Jeeps. Her brother Thomas was serving with the Marines in the Pacific, and she took personal pride in every vehicle that passed her inspection. "You think these actually make a difference out there?" asked Margaret Dempsey, a 19-year-old recent hire working alongside Eleanor. Margaret had lost her fiancé at Guadalcanal 4 months earlier. Eleanor patted the hood of the Jeep. "The letters from the front say the boys can't live without them. General Eisenhower himself called this one of the 3 tools that won the war. The other 2 were the Dakota aircraft and the landing craft. So yes, Margaret, these make all the difference." What made the Jeep remarkable wasn't any single revolutionary feature, but rather the elegant simplicity of its overall design. The vehicle weighed only 2,400 pounds, but could carry a payload nearly equal to its own weight. Its 4-wheel drive system could navigate through mud, sand, and up inclines as steep as 40 degrees. Most importantly, it was designed to be maintained and repaired by soldiers with minimal mechanical training, using a basic toolkit that came with each vehicle. Captain Miller's quartermaster unit received Jeep number 273855 in the Philippines on December 3, 1942. The vehicle was assigned to Lieutenant Frank Donovan, a communications officer responsible for maintaining contact between headquarters and forward units across challenging island terrain. "This is our new baby," Donovan told his driver. Private First Class Miguel Sanchez, a 19-year-old from New Mexico with a natural talent for mechanics. "Command says we need to keep the radio lines open no matter what. That means getting places no ordinary vehicle could reach." Sanchez circled the Jeep, examining it with an expert eye. "Looks like it can take a beating, sir. The ground clearance is impressive, almost 9 inches. And these oversized tires will grip just about anything." "That's what I like to hear. We roll out at 0500 tomorrow." Over the next 4 months, Jeep 273855 logged over 2,000 miles of service across some of the most punishing terrain imaginable. It forded streams, climbed nearly vertical hillsides, and navigated through dense jungle where no roads existed. Sanchez maintained a meticulous log of the vehicle's performance and maintenance requirements. April 15, 1943, he wrote, replaced fan belt after 3 months and 1,800 miles of continuous operation. Vehicle continues to perform without complaint, despite lack of proper maintenance facilities. Have improvised replacement parts from local materials when necessary. Lieutenant Donovan says, this machine has the heart of a tank and the appetite of a mosquito. The Jeep's remarkable service came to an abrupt end on April 26th during an encounter with a Japanese patrol. Lieutenant Donovan and his communications team were forced to abandon the vehicle when they came under fire, while transferring communication equipment between outposts. The Japanese forces, recognizing the value of the captured equipment, quickly transported the undamaged Jeep to their command center. Colonel Takashi Watanabe, commander of the Imperial Japanese Army's Technical Research Division, immediately recognized the intelligence value of the captured vehicle. "Ship it to Tokyo," he ordered. "I want our best engineers to take it apart bolt by bolt. There must be a reason the Americans are deploying these in such numbers." And so Jeep 273855 began its journey to the facility, where Captain Nakamura and his team now prepared to dissect it like surgeons examining a fascinating specimen. The Japanese engineering team approached their task with methodical precision. The Jeep was first subjected to a series of performance tests to establish baseline capabilities. Captain Nakamura personally supervised each evaluation, meticulously recording results while maintaining a skeptical demeanor. "Begin the incline test," he ordered. The test driver, Lieutenant Kenji Takahashi, a former racing driver in civilian life, positioned the Jeep at the bottom of a steep earthen ramp constructed to simulate battlefield conditions. "Starting ascent," Takahashi reported. "Engaging the gears." The Jeep's engine growled as it attacked the 45-degree slope. To the surprise of the observers, it climbed steadily without hesitation, reaching the top in seconds. "Impressive," muttered Captain Nakamura. "Now try the side incline stability test." The Jeep was positioned on a platform that could be tilted to test the vehicle's resistance to rollover. As the platform angle increased, the engineers expected the high-clearance vehicle to quickly become unstable. 30 degrees and holding stable, reported the test supervisor. "Continue increasing the angle," ordered Nakamura. 35 degrees, 40 degrees. "Still stable, sir." Nakamura frowned. Their own comparable military vehicles typically became dangerously unstable at angles exceeding 30 degrees. "That's enough. Proceed to the waterfording test." For 3 days, the testing continued. The Jeep was driven through mud pits that would have swallowed ordinary vehicles. It navigated boulder fields, climbed over logs, and forded a stream nearly 2 feet deep without modification. In every test, it met or exceeded the performance of specialized Japanese vehicles designed for similar purposes. "This makes no sense," Nakamura told his assistant, Lieutenant Yamamoto. "This is not an expensive, specialized machine. The Americans are producing these by the thousands, yet its performance is extraordinary." "Perhaps the real answers will come when we disassemble it," suggested Yamamoto. Nakamura nodded. "Begin the teardown tomorrow. I want every component catalogued, measured, and compared to our equivalent vehicles." The complete disassembly of the Jeep began early the following morning. The Japanese engineers, accustomed to the precision craftsmanship of their own military equipment, expected to find sophisticated engineering solutions inside the American vehicle. What they discovered instead would challenge their entire understanding of modern industrial warfare. Chief Technical Specialist Shigeru Ito supervised the engine removal. As a former designer for Mitsubishi's aircraft engine division, he approached the task with professional curiosity but little respect for what he assumed would be inferior American technology. "The power plant is remarkably simple," he noted with surprise as the engine was hoisted from the chassis. 4 cylinders, 134 cubic inches displacement. Nothing revolutionary in the design, yet it produces 60 horsepower and exceptional torque at low revolutions per minute. Ito's assistant, technician Haruki Nomura, examined the removed engine on the workbench. "Sir, look at these manufacturing tolerances. They're wider than our specifications." Ito frowned, measuring the critical components himself. "You're right. These would never pass our quality control. Yet the engine shows minimal wear despite evident heavy use." His confusion was evident as he made notes. "It seems the Americans have designed this engine specifically to function reliably even when components are manufactured to less exact standards." Across the workshop, another team was disassembling the transmission and transfer case that enabled the Jeep's four-wheel drive capability. Senior engineer Takeo Matsuda had spent 15 years designing drive systems for Japanese military vehicles. His expertise had produced mechanisms of exquisite precision, each one requiring skilled craftsmen to manufacture and assemble. "These components are designed for mass production," he observed with growing concern. "Look at how each part has been simplified to require minimum machining. There are no unnecessary design flourishes. Every element serves a functional purpose and has been engineered to be manufactured as quickly as possible." Captain Nakamura moved between the various teams, observing their findings with increasing disquiet. The Jeep's body panels, which they had initially dismissed as crude, revealed themselves to be ingeniously designed for easy stamping in massive presses. The electrical system used standardized components that could be quickly connected without specialized training. Even the instrument panel, a simple affair with only the most essential gauges, spoke to a design philosophy utterly different from Japanese military equipment. "They've designed this not just as a vehicle," Nakamura finally said, "but as a manufacturing challenge. Every aspect has been engineered to minimize production time and maximize output capacity." The team gathered that evening to discuss their findings. The mood was somber as the implications became clear. Lieutenant Yamamoto presented a summary of their analysis. "The Americans have approached this from a fundamentally different perspective than our engineers," he explained. "Where we design to maximize performance and then figure out how to manufacture the design, they begin with manufacturing considerations and design within those constraints." "But surely that sacrifices quality," argued engineer Matsuda. "Our vehicles are superior in precision and detail." "Are they?" Nakamura asked quietly. "This Jeep has clearly seen hard service, yet shows minimal wear. Its simplified design makes field repairs possible with basic tools, and most importantly," he paused, letting the point sink in, "they can build thousands of these in the time it takes us to produce dozens of our specialized vehicles." The room fell silent as the engineers contemplated this reality. Finally, Nakamura continued, "I believe we have been laboring under a critical misunderstanding of American industrial capability. This Jeep isn't merely a vehicle, it's a symbol of their approach to the entire war effort." While the Japanese engineers were still coming to terms with their discoveries, Major General Robert Schultz of the United States Army Ordnance Department was addressing a room full of automotive executives in Detroit. The meeting, held in late May 1943, focused on accelerating production of vital war materiel. "Gentlemen, our strategy isn't about creating the perfect vehicle," Schultz explained. "It's about creating a good enough vehicle, and then building so many of them that the enemy simply cannot match our capacity." Willys Overland Vice President Michael Harrison stood to address the group. "Our Toledo plant has now exceeded 175,000 Jeeps, and we're still accelerating production. Ford is producing them at a similar rate. Between us, a new Jeep rolls off the line approximately every 90 seconds around the clock." "That's the American way of war," Schultz nodded. "While our enemies craft a handful of technically superior weapons, we'll bury them in an avalanche of good enough ones." The executives nodded in understanding. This was industrial warfare on an unprecedented scale, not a contest of quality, but a contest of quantity underpinned by good enough quality. The Jeep embodied this philosophy perfectly. Back in Tokyo, the disassembly of Jeep 273855 continued to yield uncomfortable insights for the Japanese engineers. On the fifth day of their analysis, they made perhaps their most significant discovery. Technical specialist Nomura had been cataloging the various fasteners used throughout the vehicle, the bolts, nuts, and screws that held everything together. As he organized his findings, a pattern emerged that he found deeply troubling. "Captain Nakamura," he called out, "I believe you should see this." Nakamura crossed the workshop to where Nomura had arranged hundreds of fasteners in careful rows. "What am I looking at, specialist?" Standardization, sir, Nomura replied. The entire vehicle uses only 7 different screw head types. Every fastener falls into standard dimensions and thread patterns. And why is this significant? Our comparable vehicle uses 43 different fastener types, many of them custom manufactured for specific applications, each requiring separate production processes, separate inventory management, separate tooling. Nakamura's eyes widened as he understood. So their assembly line workers need only 7 tools instead of 43. Parts can be interchanged between vehicles. Repairs require fewer specialized components. Precisely, sir. This level of standardization extends throughout the entire vehicle. They've eliminated diversity wherever possible, even when a custom solution might offer slightly better performance in a specific application. This discovery led Nakamura to request production figures from intelligence services. When the numbers arrived the following day, the engineering team was stunned into silence. "These figures can't be accurate," protested engineer Matsuda. "Nobody could produce vehicles at this rate." "The intelligence has been confirmed by multiple sources," Nakamura responded grimly. "The Americans are producing Jeeps at approximately 1,500 per day. That's more vehicles in a single week than we can build in 3 months across all categories." The team gathered around a large table where Nakamura had spread out their findings. The mood was somber as the implications became impossible to ignore. "We've been approaching this war with the wrong mindset," Nakamura admitted. "We sought technical perfection while they pursued overwhelming numerical superiority through standardization and simplified design." Lieutenant Yamamoto spoke up. "Sir, should we not adapt our own manufacturing to follow this model? If we simplify our designs and standardize components?" Nakamura shook his head. "We lack both the raw material resources and the industrial infrastructure to match their output, regardless of design philosophy. Our entire manufacturing base would need to be rebuilt from the ground up." The engineering team's report was delivered to Imperial Japanese Army Headquarters on June 10, 1943. Its reception reflected the deep divisions within the Japanese military hierarchy between those who recognized the strategic implications and those who refused to acknowledge them. General Hideki Ishimaru, Director of Military Technology, read the report with growing alarm. "This confirms what some of us have feared since the beginning," he told his staff. "We are not merely fighting the American military, we are fighting the entire American industrial base, which dwarfs our own." But when the report was presented to the Supreme War Council, its implications were largely dismissed. "American quantity cannot overcome Japanese quality and fighting spirit," insisted General Takahiro Sato. "These mass-produced vehicles may be numerous, but they will never match the excellence of Japanese craftsmanship." Colonel Yamashita, who had advocated for a more realistic assessment of American capabilities, tried once more to make his case. "Respectfully, the evidence suggests we have underestimated not just American production capacity, but their entire approach to industrial warfare. This report on their standard light vehicle reveals a manufacturing philosophy that we cannot hope to counter with our current methods." His concerns were noted, but ultimately disregarded. The official response directed Captain Nakamura's team to focus on identifying weaknesses in American equipment that could be exploited tactically, rather than addressing the strategic implications of American production capacity. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the American industrial juggernaut continued to gain momentum. The Ford Motor Company's massive River Rouge complex outside Detroit had been completely converted to war production. Among its many output lines was a Jeep assembly operation that mirrored the one at Willys Overland. Plant manager William Hoffman led War Department officials on a tour of the facility in early July 1943. "What you're seeing here is the culmination of everything we learned from mass-producing civilian automobiles," he explained as they walked alongside a production line where Jeeps in various stages of completion moved steadily past hundreds of workers. "The key innovation isn't the Jeep itself," Hoffman continued. "It's how we build it. Every step in this process has been analyzed, optimized, and simplified to remove bottlenecks. We've reduced the specialized skills required at each station so new workers can be trained in days, not months." The officials watched as the body of a Jeep was lowered onto its chassis. the two major components coming together in a carefully choreographed operation that took less than 2 minutes to complete. Before the war, we were building cars for American consumers, Hoffman said. Now we're building Jeeps that can go anywhere and do anything. And we're building them at a pace our enemies can't comprehend, let alone match. While American factories continued their relentless output, Captain Nakamura and his team in Tokyo worked to complete their analysis of Jeep 273855. Despite the disappointing response from high command, they remained determined to document everything they had learned. "We may not be able to match their production capacity," Nakamura told his team, "but perhaps we can incorporate some of their design philosophy into our future vehicles." The team focused on the Jeep's remarkable versatility, how a single basic design could fulfill so many different roles on the battlefield. They noted how American forces used the Jeep as a reconnaissance vehicle, a light weapons platform, an ambulance, a command car, and even as a light artillery tractor when necessary. "Their approach eliminates the need for multiple specialized vehicle types," observed Lieutenant Yamamoto. "Instead of our practice of designing distinct vehicles for each function, they created one adaptable platform. This versatility extended to ease of maintenance in the field." Technical specialist. Ito demonstrated how the Jeep's engine could be removed and replaced using only basic tools and minimal technical training. "The entire power plant can be swapped in under 4 hours by 2 moderately skilled mechanics," he explained. "Our comparable vehicles require specialized equipment and technicians, with repair times often exceeding 20 hours for similar operations." As their study concluded, the engineering team compiled a comprehensive report detailing everything they had learned from the American Jeep. The document included not just technical specifications, but a broader analysis of what the vehicle revealed about American industrial strategy and its implications for the war effort. In his final assessment, Captain Nakamura wrote, "The Willys MB represents not merely a successful vehicle design, but an entirely different approach to modern warfare. The Americans have recognized that industrial capacity, standardization, and simplicity of maintenance ultimately matter more than technical sophistication or craftsmanship. A technically superior vehicle that cannot be produced in sufficient numbers or maintained in the field has already failed, regardless of its performance specifications." He concluded with a warning. "We must recognize that we are engaged not just in a contest of armies, but a contest of industrial systems. In this latter competition, evidence suggests we are at a severe disadvantage that cannot be overcome with current resources and manufacturing approaches." The report was submitted to headquarters on July 20th, 1943. Its reception was mixed, with some officers recognizing its strategic importance, while others continued to dismiss its implications as defeatist thinking. Ultimately, however, Japan's industrial base was already committed to existing designs and production methods, making large-scale adaptation impossible regardless of the report's recommendations. Captain Nakamura was reassigned to a field engineering unit in the Philippines shortly after completing his analysis. Before leaving Tokyo, he had one final conversation with Lieutenant Yamamoto. "History will show that understanding your enemy's strengths is as important as identifying their weaknesses," Nakamura said. "We focused too much on the latter and ignored the former." "What will become of the Jeep?" Yamamoto asked. "It will be sent to the Technical Museum for preservation," Nakamura replied. "Perhaps future generations will study it and learn what we could not convince our leaders to accept." In an ironic twist, Jeep 273855 would never reach that museum. Allied bombing of Tokyo in 1944 destroyed the facility where it was stored, erasing this particular vehicle from history. But the lessons it represented would be rediscovered after the war, as Japan rebuilt its industrial base and eventually became a world leader in efficient manufacturing techniques. In the United States, production of the Willys MB continued at an astonishing rate throughout the war. By the time manufacturing ceased in 1945, Willys Overland and Ford had produced over 640,000 Jeeps, more than all types of German military vehicles combined during the same period. The impact of this production miracle extended far beyond military applications. When Eleanor Winters returned to her role as a schoolteacher after the war, she brought with her important lessons from her time supervising Jeep production. "The experience fundamentally changed how I teach," she later wrote. "I learned that standardization and simplicity often achieve better results than complexity and specialization. Just as we designed the Jeep to be maintained by soldiers with minimal training, I now design my lessons to be accessible to all students regardless of their background." Private First Class Miguel Sanchez, who had reluctantly abandoned Jeep 273855 during the Japanese attack, returned to New Mexico after the war and opened an automotive repair shop. The principles he had learned maintaining the versatile vehicle in difficult field conditions informed his entire approach to his business. "Keep it simple, keep it standard, make it fixable by anyone with basic skills," became his shop's unofficial motto. His business thrived in the post-war boom, eventually growing into one of the largest independent automotive service chains in the southwestern United States. As for Lieutenant Frank Donovan, whose communications unit had first received the Jeep in the Philippines, he went on to work for Willys Overland after the war, helping to develop the civilian version of the vehicle that would eventually become an American icon. The lessons of wartime production and design were not lost on the company, which continued to emphasize simplicity, ruggedness, and versatility in its post-war products. The story of how a humble American Jeep revealed fundamental truths about industrial warfare came full circle in the 1970s, when Japanese manufacturers began revolutionizing global manufacturing with their own systems of standardization, efficiency, and quality control. Many of the principles they pioneered had striking parallels to what Captain Nakamura and his team had observed in that captured Willys MB 3 decades earlier. In 1983, automotive historian Robert Patterson interviewed several surviving members of the wartime Japanese engineering team for his book on military vehicle development. Former Lieutenant Yamamoto, by then a respected professor of mechanical engineering, reflected on the significance of their wartime analysis. "The Jeep taught us that true innovation often lies not in complex solutions, but in simplifying the complex," he said. After the war, when Japan rebuilt its industrial capacity, many of us remembered the lessons of that American vehicle, how standardization, design for manufacturing, and emphasis on field maintenance had created something greater than the sum of its parts. The legacy of the Jeep extended far beyond the battlefield. Its fundamental design principles, simplicity, versatility, standardization, and ease of maintenance, influenced not just automotive design but industrial design broadly throughout the latter half of the 20th century. From household appliances to electronic devices, the philosophy that underpinned the Jeep's success became embedded in modern manufacturing worldwide. The humble vehicle that Captain Nakamura had expected to reveal American weaknesses instead exposed the true strength of the American war effort, an unprecedented industrial capacity combined with practical, production-oriented design philosophy. This approach ultimately proved more decisive than any single battle or campaign. Today, more than 7 decades after its creation, the basic design of the Willys Jeep remains recognizable in its modern descendants. Its influence extends far beyond its physical form, however, to the very way we think about designing products for a mass market. The lesson that good enough produced in overwhelming quantities will prevail over excellent produced in limited numbers has been proven repeatedly in both military and civilian contexts. The sun was setting over the testing grounds when Captain Nakamura completed his final inspection of Jeep 273855. The vehicle had been reassembled after its comprehensive disassembly, a testament to the simplicity of its design. As he ran his hand along the hood, feeling the solid construction beneath the utilitarian form, he found himself respecting what this machine represented. "We sought to find a weakness," he told Lieutenant Yamamoto, who stood nearby, but instead discovered a different kind of strength, not the strength of superior craftsmanship, but the strength of superior production. It is a lesson I fear we have learned too late. He could not have known then that the humble Jeep he had so thoroughly examined would come to symbolize not just American industrial might during World War II, but a revolution in manufacturing philosophy that would ultimately transform the global economy, including that of Japan itself, in the decades to come. The vehicle that had been designed to go anywhere and do anything had also crossed the boundaries between enemies, carrying with it lessons that transcended the conflict itself. And that concludes our story. If you made it this far, please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this historical account surprised you most? Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from World War II and check out the video on screen for another incredible tale from history. Until next time.